Everybody, welcome to this meeting of the Preservation Board. Take a look at the agenda. Does anybody have any reason to recuse themselves from consideration of any of these items? Okay. Good enough then. Let's begin. 2800 Shenandoah.
Could we move to that slide, Bethany?
I'm getting there.
Okay. This is a preliminary review application to construct. Oh, I'm sorry. I should say that this is Jan Cameron from the Cultural Resources Office. This is a preliminary review application to construct a canopy cover or patio cover at the front elevation of this building, which is Little Fox. And it is located at the corner of Shenandoah and California, as you can see here, across from the southern end of Fox Park, in the Fox Park Certified Historic District. What you're seeing on the map there is the Fox Park Certified District, which has been in effect for quite a while. And then the blue area is both the St. Francis de Sales National Register District and the Fox Park extension that went in a couple of years ago. Next, please. We go. Okay. Here's the site plan. So you can see that the canopy will be a fairly large structure, and it will cover most of the front facade, although it is open so that the front facade will still be visible. Next. The problem is that the historic district standards do not allow any sort of addition to a public facade, which is the front facade. You could do an addition to a semi-public facade, but not to a street facade. And that's pretty much what's cut and dry here. And this, of course, is the front elevation with their existing patio. And the canopy will extend out towards the street. Next. And this is a rendering of what the canopy will look like. It will have some panels that will be hidden within the structure of the canopy that will be screen panels that will be able to be let down when necessary. But for the most part, it will be open. And as it's shown on the rendering, the storefront will not be obscured, although this is a major addition. I should also point out that while this is a permanent structure, it can be removed at some future date should the current owner or a subsequent owner wish to, without damaging any of this historic fabric of the building. Next. And another rendering showing the canopy looking southwest from California. Next. And just a comparison of the structure. The befores are on the top and the afters at the bottom. Next. And a rendering of the interior, which will be, as I said, fairly open. We're looking eastward towards Fox Park from this perspective. Next. Two elevations of the building, both of them public facades. Next. And just some quick context shots. We are proceeding south down Shenandoah. This is on the right is the adjacent property. You can see that the setback for these buildings is fairly substantial. And the canopy will extend out to the edge of the sidewalk. Next. Continuing down Shenandoah. On the left, on the right frame is the opposite and Shenandoah, the opposite street corner. And we're heading, I've lost my directions here. We're heading east. Next. And this is the intersection of Shenandoah and California, which is cross street here. We're looking at the building and Fox Park on the very far left. And on the opposite, the context directly opposite the building on Shenandoah. Next. And again, we're looking back along Shenandoah. The vacant lot is directly opposite the subject property. Next. And this is heading east. Fox Park is on the right of the first shot. And this is the context on the north side of Shenandoah. Next. Looking back towards the building with Fox Park shown on the Shenandoah and also on the California side. Next. Okay, I have 2 letters of support. The first is from the Alderwoman, Alderwoman Ingracia, that indicates her support for the construction of a patio cover with operable screens. Next. And a letter from the Fox Park Neighborhood Association from the president, Katie Lampe, and also indicating support of the installation. The staff, however, because the staff has to look at the standards and enforce them, is recommending that the board withhold preliminary approval for this, as it does not comply with the requirements of Fox Park standards. And I believe that the owner is entering an economic hardship appeal. And that's my presentation, and we can proceed to the applicant's presentation. Bethany. Next, Bethany.
I'll get it. Hold on, I gotta pull it up.
1
No,
second.
no, it's attached.
Oh, it's
Ready?
attached?
Just
Do we have any
continue.
questions for Jan?
I have a question. This is Randy. Can you tell me, I know that this particular proposal and appendage, I guess, is non-compliant with the Fox Park standards, but is there any alternative that can achieve the owner's goals as well as satisfy the ordinance?
Well, we did try, we've met with the owner and tried to hammer out something, but nothing will really be able to resolve their problems, and they will go into this more. But there really does not seem to be a way that they can provide exterior seating in a way that can comply with the standards.
Okay, and one follow-up. You did mention that even though it's a permanent structure, it's relatively easy to remove without, endangering any of the integrity of the building.
I wouldn't say it was easy to remove, and the architect can explain more about this, but it is attaching in a non-historic part of the building, so no historic fabric is being damaged.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Jan, I've got a question. Is this a porch, a stoop, or a step?
It is an appendage.
The ordinance says new porches, stoops, and steps.
Yes.
Which one is it?
Well, I guess it would have to be a porch if that's what I have to pick from.
Okay. Commissioner Coder, do you have a remark on that?
I'll withhold. I'd like to hear from the applicant first.
Ready. Let's hear from the applicant then. Jay, you ready?
I sure am. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Let's go.
I'm Jay Reeves with Revel Architects. I have a long connection to Fox Park because I've been chairman of the Fox Park Historic District Standard and Development Committee for 6 or 7 years. But today I'm speaking on behalf of my client, who is Craig and Mowgli Rivard, who are the proprietors at Little Fox. Mowgli's going to join it. She's on this as well, and she's going to say a few words as well after we get started here. So today, I'm not representing the neighborhood, but there is support from the neighborhood, as you've seen, which I've had to stay aside from during that presentation. But this is a building, as Jan said, that's in a historic district. It was built in 1915, renovated. It was in terrible shape, a big overhaul in 2012. The Purple Martin was the first tenant in this renovated space back in 2013. They closed in 2017, every few iterations, and Little Fox moved in at the very end, December of 2019. And at my last firm at Space, we designed the restaurant with Craig and Mowgli, and we also built this project. So this is one that I've had a long connection with. When they opened, it was just a few months prior to the COVID intrusion into all of our lives. And the restaurant, Little Fox, was extremely well received in the neighborhood. Craig and Mowgli live in the neighborhood. They're investing in our neighborhood. They live in the historic district, and it's important to all of us. So they had been very conservative in their COVID operations. I would say more than most any restaurant that I was interfacing with. Safety and public health has kind of been paramount for them. They've had no interior dining to date. They've really swallowed a difficult pill to try to keep their people safe and do the right thing. So they did go through almost a year now of trying a series of tent options. They have a development opportunity on the site across the street. So we put in a tent over there. They learned a lot of lessons, what it means to try to run a restaurant that's across the street from their facility, what it means to try to keep that moving, staff it, where the resources are tied up, et cetera. And after a year of that, they basically came up with a nuanced understanding of what it means to run an outdoor regimen. So their goals when they came to us were, we need something that's attached to the building so they can service it well, something that can provide some more dependable revenue despite most weather, which meant we need to address rain with covering keep it dry, wind, which we're addressing with some screens, flexibility of keeping it open air so patio can feel like a patio on days where it's nice. And then also showing off their interior investment of the restaurant. It's something they're very proud of. They've spent a lot of money on. There's an amazing architect design on the inside, and we're all proud to share that with everyone. So this solution that Jan showed you kind of came from us assessing the historic building and trying to identify a band that we can attach to the building in a way that's respectful. And as Commissioner Vines was asking, it is something that is removable. It's not something that they're asking for temporary approval for, because their business model is really turned upside down, as you might guess. They really need some of this outdoor seating even past the time where we all have shots in our arms. So they're trying to figure out how to make that business model work after essentially 14 months of really being hamstrung by that. So that said, you can see the images I have here, very similar to what Jan's are. I wanted to draw a little bit of attention to that band over the storefront. You can see there's a really wide 12-inch zone that we plan to connect that doesn't interrupt the decorative trim above or below. And we think we can make some attachments there that when this thing does need to come down, it's really just patching and repairing that trim and not hurting the brick or not hurting the larger structure there. Could you go to the next slide, please? This is the site plan that Jan already showed. I don't really need to go into that, but happy to jump back at any time. We're coming almost all the way out to the sidewalk. You can see on the page up, which is the west side of the property, there's a zone we're not covering, and that's access to the residential tenants who live upstairs, right where it says the words proposed pergola covering existing patio are at. Next slide, please. Again, the images you've seen before, the height of this will vary, but at the highest point is closest to the storefront or the further west end, which is about 12 feet. And because the grade will come up from there, those columns will get shorter as you go up the hill. When we found this, we were working with them and identified this product by Think Pergola and Apollo Pergola. Think Pergola is the local distributor. It addressed our problems of rain, wind, sky, and allowing views. The rain actually has a framework that's permanent, but it has a series of louvers that will, in sunny days, will be vertical. And then on days where they're going to have bad weather, they can actually pivot and lock together. It's a mechanical connection, so it can keep it watertight. To address the wind that Mowgli will probably talk about some more herself, we have some pull down shades that can come down to be a windbreak. They found in their other outdoor dining, no matter how many fire pits and heaters they had, on days where it was windy, glasses were getting knocked over, people were just too cold. Even if it was 50 degrees outside, if the wind was blowing, it wasn't dependable for them. And then those views back up to the sky by allowing those panels to open back up, which you can see in the rendering we'll show in a minute. That's something that works well. We did come to staff saying we don't have a model example for this, but we want to be respectful and do something that's removable. So one of the items that Jan and Dan talked about was the color. Little Fox really kind of owned this whole storefront. It was a strange kind of green two different grays before they came in, and they painted the entire storefront, a lot of the trim, this dark gray. It was staff's opinion that if we did something that was lighter gray, which you'll see, can you go to the next slide, please? Which you'll see in our renderings here, we went with a lighter gray for the ad to make a little bit of a distinction between what's historic and what's not. No one's going to believe that this was a historic piece because it's very clean lines, contemporary, and trying not to, you know, take away anything from the building itself. So let's go to the next slide as well. I think you've seen the rest of these images, yeah. You can see it's very transparent. It really just touches the ground in 3 places close to the sidewalk. Next slide, please. And then this is that view inside, and you can see 2 of the screens coming down on the north elevation at different heights. Those can drop down as needed for shading, but they'll be stored in the frame at the top. This is also a good spot to kind of see how those louvers, you can see the shadow of the building actually is casting on top of the ceiling on the upper right part of the screen. And then you can see right through to the sky on nice days. You can see the sunlight's coming through there as well on the floor. Next one, please. We'll show some samples of the product. Just see the fit and finish of this is pretty nice. We just put it into a house in a house cabana project in Ladue, and these are reference images of other installations, factory painted, very clean, the kind of fit and finish is quite nice. So these are just examples of that. And the last page is an example of the screens. Go to that one, please, Bethany. This is that screen product. So they have a little valance basically that's at the top, and those can drop down to provide that protection. I would also like to introduce Mowgli. I'm not sure if the commissioners want to ask us questions individually or after we've both spoken, but Mowgli's on board too to speak.
Let's hear from Mowgli, and then we'll have questions for all of you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jay. You said everything really well. But yeah, I'd just like to explain it from our side a bit. As I said, we opened in December 2019, indoors only at that point, and closed March 14th of 2020 due to COVID. With so many unknowns, we stayed completely closed for a while. We slowly opened as sort of a market and grocery store, prepared items, wine shop. Then as the weather got better, we added some patio and takeout. And we also did, at that time, we were able to use the lot across the street, which we tented and called sort of this other entity, Little Fox Summer, which was supposed to be really easygoing and casual. Yes, 2020, COVID is obviously the worst word, but our second worst word was wind. We had no idea. I don't know if it's everywhere, but this corner certainly is very windy. And even in the best circumstances, when it was like that, it just wasn't comfortable for guests. So that's where we got to thinking, how could we break up the wind? Which this having the removable or the walls that can come down is a huge piece of that. I guess another point I want to say is, you know, we spent just shy of $750,000 to open this restaurant for 3 months. So us coming to say we want to spend another chunk of money is certainly not something we want to do. So we feel that it's necessary in order to continue to stay in the neighborhood. But I have a lot more specifics if anyone wants to know about, like propane heating, for example. We currently have, you would go through, because of the wind, you're basically heating the wind most of the time, 1 propane tank per service per unit. And so you think about 4 units. So that would come to about $88 just to have lunch open, and then another $88 for dinner. You know, so it's been the added expense to even try and keep afloat. But moving forward, we're going to have to try and make up for this enormous loss in revenue that we've had over this time. And normally I'm very picky myself, certainly. When Jay brought this to me, it just is like, I was very excited because it actually addressed everything that we were having problems with. And if this For example, October was our best month on the patio as it is. It was the best weather. And we had this, so that had 6 tables. Across the street had 3 times more tables. But we made a significant amount more money on the patio than we did across the street, because people want this full service dining that we can create more year round with the pergola system.
Commissioners, are there questions?
Well, no, I have a comment.
Okay, just end it as a question and we'll be fine.
I think this is a great pivot and I'm excited for this, don't you think?
That is perfect.
Chairman, I've got just a basic question. The removable windows, just Jay or Craig or Mowgli, go ahead and answer. What are those glass? Are those some sort of plastic material? How does that work?
Those are, I'll take a stab at that one, Jack. Those are, I think it's a polypropylene plastic material that's on a roll. So the roller is up at that beam depth and is essentially, for practical purpose, concealed and then just drops down.
Oh, okay. I see
so,
that on page 4 of the agenda now. You can kind of see that. Okay.
Yeah, so what's nice about that is they can, if we apply those rollers in each of those areas, they can target where it's dropped down. For instance, the west one might drop down when the wind's coming from that direction, but the others could remain open. And when they're not in service, they all go up because there's no reason. I mean, it's more of a liability for them to have that down than up. So they're going to want to bring it up when they don't need to. And that allows us, again, that kind of transparent view of the historic building again.
Got it. Thank you, guys.
Commissioners, any
I'm
other
sorry, we were a little late getting this up. This is to support Mowgli's testimony. So I don't know if you want to run through it very quickly.
Actually, Mowgli, I think your propane number is really low. I've heard Rick Lewis at Grace meet on the subject of propane, and he suggests that it is an unbearable expense.
Yeah, yes, I was being a little bit modest. I think we needed more heaters than we had, but this was all we could get. But yes, I never thought I would be getting a propane delivery service at my restaurant. Every week, by the way, we did have a propane cage in the back, and Christmas week, someone broke it and stole all of our propane tanks. So yeah, it's been an uphill battle. So yes, propane, I guess we didn't speak to that. This pergola, we would install electric heaters that would come down on people. So that would get rid of the propane. Of course, electric heat is still a cost, but nothing compared to this efficiency wise.
Commissioners, further questions?
And one question. So I think the architect said that when this thing comes down, but there's really not an expectation that it would come down, correct? As long as Little Fox is there.
That's correct. Yeah, we made that comment, Commissioner, in the context of if it needs to be reversible, it can be, but we're not asking for temporary approval. We're asking for them to have full approval to install this as designed.
Yeah.
Actually, if I might follow up with that, I think Mowgli kind of touched on it a little bit, but their business model really is going to have to be different as we move forward. Even as things start, we can provide a little bit more density of eating around after COVID. So the big benefit to them is that internal view that you saw. They can essentially expand the capacity. Their kitchen's prepared for it, but they can expand the capacity of their revenue based on this added footprint as well to kind of make up for lost time. So it is a bigger deal beyond the days where we're all concerned about COVID right now.
Okay, commissioners, thank you. We have one speaker. Rocco, you still here?
Yeah, I'm here. I just have a quick question. Jay, when everything's locked horizontally, and it rains, where does the water go? Did that hear that?
There we go. There's an internal water collection system. So we'll have a proper downspout on the
Gotcha.
west side of that. It'll collect that water and get it off the property.
Cool. I like it. I think it's exactly what the modern versus the historic. It's respectful of it. It's not trying to imitate. I think it's a good design.
Great, thank you, commissioners.
Thanks.
That concludes the testimony in this subject. All those in, I need a motion, don't I? Commissioner Richardson, have you got a motion?
Yes, I move that the Preservation Board overturn the director's denial and grant of economic hardship variance to allow the patio stoop covering as proposed.
Second.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate the flexibility.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, commissioners, we move into a different phase of this meeting. We reconstitute as an administrative board. We will hear an appeal of a staff denial. I'll ask the speakers to identify themselves by name and to tell us that they're going to be telling the truth. Be sure to submit all the evidence that you want to build your record, both in support of the staff denial and in appeal of the staff denial. Calling agenda item B, 2019 Russell.
I'm Andrea Gagan with the Cultural Resources Office, and I swear to tell the truth. I need to enter into the ordinance or into the record, ordinance 64689, the enabling ordinance, ordinance 67901, the McKinley Heights Historic District Ordinance, the agenda, the PowerPoint, and the application. This is 2019 Russell. Next. And this is just a showing where it's located. It's in the center of the McKinley Heights Historic District. We received a complaint about someone has installed a roofing material without a permit. So we went out and investigated, and there was a violation on it. So the owner applied for a permit initially to replace it with gray 3-tab shingles, but then later decided that they wanted to try and retain the existing blue shake roof instead. Next. This is just a close-up. The roof material does not comply, and it was denied. The owner has appealed. The shingles on the roof now installed are mimicking a wood shake roof, not a slate roof as required in the historic district standards. The light blue color is also not characteristic of slate or wood shingles. And then next. And this is just some context. The majority of buildings on this block actually are flat roofs. There are a few other types of roofs, but mainly most of them are flat. None of them are blue. The current, as I said before, the current shingles were installed without a permit, and they do not comply with McKinley Heights Historic District standards. Therefore, the Preservation or the Cultural Resources Office recommends that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial of the shingles as it not comply with the McKinley Heights Historic District standards. Any questions?
Commissioners, questions for Ms. Gagan?
And Bethany, you go back if you want.
Okay, I hear no questions. Still hear no questions. Let's hear from the appellant.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, David, we can hear you.
I'm David LeBon. This is my wife, Maren. We own the building at 2019 and 2021 Russell Boulevard. So this is our roof. First of all, thank you everyone for being here and giving us a chance to make our case to you. We want to apologize for this. We love St. Louis. We love the historic districts and neighborhoods here. We love McKinley Heights. We did not realize that this was that we were going against the historic district standards. Our contractor was required to pull a permit for this roof, and we assumed that he had. Obviously, he had not. And we learned that when we got the violation notice. So this was very much unintentional. That said, while I understand that it does not meet the letter of the district standards, we chose the color largely because we felt that it was fairly similar to the color of slate. It is a slate blue. I understand that gray is preferable, and certainly if we had known that, we would have gone with that. But we do feel that it's not certainly not a bright blue. We do feel that it could accurately be called slate blue. And as far as the style of shingles goes, I would never have suspected that architectural was not allowed, primarily because most, or a very large number, if not most, of the buildings within the McKinley Heights that have had their roofs replaced had had them replaced with architectural shingles. I'm a former renovation contractor. Any renovation person, any roofer, anyone with experience in remodeling will tell you in no uncertain terms, architectural shingles blow away 3 tabs in every possible measure. We understand 3 tabs are allowed by the Historic District Code, but no roofer will advise installing 3 tabs at this point in time because they look like crap and they behave like crap, and they last about half the time that a good architectural shingle will last. So again, not trying to make excuses here. We do apologize, but as far as we're aware, it took about 14 or 15 months between the time when this roof was completed and the time that we received a notice of violation. Accordingly, we feel that it would be fair in some sense that we maybe be permitted to retain the roof that's there. Also, it's clear based on that length of time that this is not a change that is so out of character with the neighborhood as it is, that it offends the eye of those passing by or our neighbors or anyone else. In fact, we get tons of compliments. We put a lot of money into renovating this place and bringing it up significantly from where it had been when we bought it in 2017. And we are in the process of renting it out to excellent tenants and so on. But we've heard nothing but compliments from everyone who has seen it. That's all I have to ramble on about at this time, unless you have any questions. So I will shut up unless you want to add anything.
Commissioners, questions for the appellant?
I have a question. Thanks for being here. Have you spoken with your contractor and have they owned up to their failure to seek a permit?
We have spoken to them. Yes, we've had many choice words with them. They've owned up to nothing. It turns out in retrospect that they never own up to their multitude of failures in regard to our project. I luckily have a lot of experience in renovation myself, and so I was able to babysit and shepherd them through the process and get it done. I mean, it took very much longer and was much more expensive than it should have been. It is a very sore subject. So they've not owned up to anything, but the contract is very clear. So if for whatever reason this roof needs to be replaced, we will be suing them and enforcing that contract to make them do that at their cost. They did apply for the permit ultimately, eventually in the fall of 2020, but we knew that it was almost certainly going to be denied at that point. It was just to, I guess, start this process rolling forward.
Okay, that's unfortunate. Okay, thank you guys. No other questions for me.
Commissioners, any further questions?
Chairman, I've got a question. This is Jack.
Sure.
Aaron and David, would replacing this roof present an economic hardship for you both?
Well, yes.
That's fine. Thank you.
Further questions? Okay. David, have you introduced every bit of evidence that you need for your case?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Commissioners, this concludes the appellant's testimony. Rocco is signed up to speak. Rocco?
Hey, yes, so I went over and looked at this. This is Rocco. I represent the Neighborhood Association as their head of development. Went over and looked at this. And I talked to Maren herself when I was there. Jack was with me, actually. And the blue there's no question it's blue, and but it is not as blue as that one image shows where you're comparing the previous one. I'm not going to say it's altered. I'm just going to say it's not as profound as the previous image. I think this is a little bit more accurate of what the color tone is. It actually looks quite well because the doors are painted the door is the same as the ones as the color. It's very similar in color, so it actually complements quite well. Although we are very strict on this, typically there are some exceptions, and I think this is one of those exceptions. You know, in the end, it actually looks okay. I would like to comment to the applicant that materiality, although in historic districts it may perform well or not perform well, that is not the issue. You need to, in the future, you need to make sure that the materials are, as the historic says, performance or not. I mean, we wouldn't have wood doors on the front of buildings if we were worried about performance. It's historic. It's a historic quality that the code is trying to achieve. So I would be in support of leaving it as is.
That concludes our testimony, and that concludes our testimony in this manner, in this matter. Let's see.
I have a question.
Yes, for whom?
Going back to Jack's question about, it's such a lawyer question, yes or no? about the roof. What was the cost of the roof? I'm just curious.
We had a lump sum contract with our contractor, and we also have a large area of flat roof behind this facade area and a flat porch roof. So we had one lump sum for the roof cost. I'm not sure how much of that cost was attributable to the facade piece. I think it was in the neighborhood of 4,500, 5,000, somewhere in that range.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question. So, Liz, so I don't see colors regulated, right? So it's really
David, can you lean a little closer to your mic?
I don't really see that color is regulated under the ordinance, correct?
Not specifically.
So, and of those 7 choices that I have of roofing materials, I guess this is not any of those. I don't.
Right.
What's number 6?
Number 6, let me see here. It's because it says, these are asphalt or fiberglass shingles, but standard 3-tab design means that they're the square shape.
Got it. Okay, so we agree that color's not, and so they're their 6 does allow asphalt shingles, but we didn't do 3-tab design.
Yeah, they're not the right asphalt shingles.
Thank you.
Further questions? Okay, I hear no further questions. The testimony has been submitted by both sides. Commissioner Robinson, have you got a motion?
I recommend that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial, as the roofing does not meet the McKinley Heights Historic District standards.
Commissioners, is there a second? Is there a second for discussion?
I guess, no, I'm not even going to do that.
Wait, what? Oh, no, I mean, Rocco with the neighborhood association said they're fine with it. I
Yeah.
understand.
So
Tiffany?
we can't have a discussion if there is no second.
Is there a second?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were in discussion. Sorry.
No.
Okay, are you seconding the
No,
motion?
I'm not seconding his motion, no.
Okay, apparently nobody wants to second this motion.
Hmm?
Make an alternate motion.
Yeah, I would be happy to make an alternate motion as well.
Alderman Coder, motion?
Yeah, I move that the Preservation Board overturn the director's denial and allow the roofing to remain due to economic hardship.
A second to that motion for discussion.
Second.
I second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Vines. Discussion, Alderman Coder?
Yeah, and I guess I maybe should have put this in the record as evidence during testimony, but I did meet on site with Marin and Rocco, as he mentioned, and drive by this regularly and walk by it regularly, and had the opportunity recently to meet some of the homeowners' tenants as well, canvassing. I mean, they've done a wonderful job with the property. I would agree that the blue, I don't think really is that issue at all. It's not in the ordinance, and also it's very subtle. Looks quite nice. Frankly, the roof looks great. I think this was an oversight. I don't think the homeowners intended to violate the ordinance, and this would be definitely a hardship to redo and to go litigate with this contractor. So I hope people will vote in favor of this appeal.
Tiffany?
I second everything Jax said. It looks great to me. So, and especially because the neighborhood doesn't have an issue with it, and there's nothing citing the specific color. I would hate for them to go into court, try to get money out of these people, and then lose more money. So, especially
Tiffany?
during these COVID days.
Tiffany, could you sell a house with a blue roof?
Yes, I could sell this house. Yes, I could, especially with those gorgeous doors.
Okay, that's good. Commissioner Vines?
Nope, I have no further comment. I agree.
Any other commissioners have comments?
Yes.
Okay,
So, sorry. What is going on? Hold on just a second for me. There we go. Okay, so my issue here, and I appreciate that the neighborhood is in favor of overturning this motion. My concern here is first and foremost that we have had other roofs come before this board that were, for all intents and purposes, nice roofs, but we still denied them because they did not meet the historic district standard. And, you know, to change that on this particular project, I think does a disservice to everyone else that we voted to have removed. Secondly, $4,500 on this roof, and this particular portion of the roof makes up less than 1/8 of the total roof. So it is a very, very small portion of the overall roofing of this building. The predominance of the roof is a flat roof and you can't see it. And so the only thing that is visible is this portion here. And like I said, it represents 1/8 of the total scope of the roof. So I am positive that you know, it doesn't work out to be 1/8 of the cost, but even if it was 1/4 of the cost, and the total cost of the roof was $4,500, you know, that works out to be $1,125 at 1/4. So what we're saying is we are going to overturn the director's denial based on what we like. I question a hardship based on my construction experience and the size of the roof and what we are talking about having them replace. Because if we do this, then we need to do it for everyone else.
Further comments?
May I respond to that? And I appreciate what Commissioner Robinson said, and I think it makes sense. However, I think this situation is a little unique because the neighborhood association has signed off on it. And in previous cases where we have not overturned the director's denial, it seems like there was a lot more unanimous opposition, either the materials or the aesthetic, and or the neighborhood association took a position against it for whatever reason.
But my issue with that is that you cannot look at every situation. My concern here is that as a commissioner on the preservation board, I don't know what particular politics, and I am not speaking in terms of this particular project, but I don't know in other instances if there were not particular politics that happened that perhaps caused the neighborhood association or the alderman to vote against that project. And the problem with that is if there were, in fact, politics, that potentially those projects could have and should have been approved based on this. The problem is politics, and there should not be politics on this board. I am not stating that there are, in fact, politics happening with this particular project. What I am stating is that there is the possibility of that in projects. And so simply stating that it doesn't meet that you know, this looks nice, and because it looks nice, we should say, okay, again, I have seen other projects come before the board where and having been a commissioner now for 18 years, I have seen a number of projects come before the board where the owners had good intentions, but the contractor messed up. They did not pull permits. They installed, whether it be windows, doors, roofing. I've seen all three. And that is not to say that there was not some hardship, but we still denied them. This particular case, again, this portion of this roof represents less than an eighth of the total scope of the roof. That is all I have to say. I will bring this back up again if we happen to vote down someone else's project in a similar circumstance.
Can I say something?
Yes.
So I understand Anthony's concern about politics and so forth. But I think we need to have good faith that Rocco is acting on good faith for the community. And I guess the fact that I think the difference is, like Randy said, that this Rocco has agreed that this is okay for his neighborhood. If the neighborhood, they're the people that actually make the rules, I think that's okay with that.
No, they aren't.
Yeah,
Chairman, if I could comment.
Hang on, let's let Mr. Robinson finish his answer.
Yeah.
Tony?
No, I truly believe, knowing Rocco, that, and I trust that Rocco says it's good. I believe it's good. My concern isn't with this particular project and our politics with this particular project. That is not my concern here. My concern is the precedence that will be set. And I know for a fact that there are other projects that have come before us that the neighborhood association and the aldermen were against, and in some cases we ultimately voted against it. In other cases, there wasn't enough credible evidence to vote against it. But my concern is that because aldermen and historic districts have come before us and argued against a particular applicant, even though there wasn't an issue, that means that could happen again, and they don't get the same treatment that this project gets. That is my concern.
I'm back. I'm sorry, I was gone.
Hey, Rocco, I don't need you for this discussion.
Okay.
Alderman Coder?
Yeah, I guess as the politician on the board, which as you guys have structured this board and as it's passed by ordinance, if there is a politician on here, Commissioner Robinson, I disagree strongly with your assertion that politics is at play here.
I did not say that. I actually specifically said that I did not.
You've tried to walk that back. I've got the floor, sir. Looking at this, I've been on this board a short amount of time where we've, in certain instances, we have liked windows and allowed people to keep, non-conforming windows. We've turned them down in others. I'm not sure we've dealt with a roof since I've been on this board, but I suspect we look at the evidence in front of us and what's presented and make a decision on a case-by-case basis. In this instance, myself as the alderman for the district, the representative of the neighborhood association who represents its historic committee are in favor of this. We've met with the homeowner. They've expressed that there's an economic hardship here. We've inspected the roof and it looks to meet what we think is acceptable. So I would ask everyone to vote to uphold this appeal or this overturn this denial, and allow the appeal to go forward. And I don't believe we're setting any precedents going forward. I think we take these on a case-by-case basis as we've done in the short time I've been here.
I I respectfully disagree. I do agree that we do take particular projects on a case by case basis, but there's a reason we have a set of historic district standards. And if there's a problem with the historic district standards, this being in your particular ward, then we should change those.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak?
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Richardson.
Commissioner Richardson, proceed.
So I agree with what Commissioner Robinson just said. If there's a problem with them, we should change them. I think as Rocco said, that this neighborhood has allowed and supported variances from their standards on the roofs here. This neighborhood has updated their standards, so I think they've looked at this. My point would be, Commissioner Robinson, that we do look at everything individually, that other roofs that have come before us are are in different historic districts that have different standards. I can't think of one in McKinley Heights right now that I could say that we treated differently than this one or treated similarly than this one. But I would note that every historic district is different and has different standards. I think as I was asking Andrea, again, color is not regulated in this ordinance that I see. And this ordinance does appear to allow a variety of materials. And I had to Google 3-tab design to understand what that meant versus architectural. And so I do agree that architectural is not spelled out in this list, but it is a pretty broad list. And again, the neighborhood has allowed variances in the past, as Rocco testified. We do have some evidence as to hardship, albeit you're saying not much hardship. So I don't think it sets precedents other than in McKinley Heights. And we will hold them to their position if the neighborhood takes a contrary position when politics does come into play.
So, well, I do agree with you, Commissioner Richardson, that obviously every historic district is different and has its own set of rules. The rules are still the rules. And, you know, what I would tell you is that, you know, I know my particular house made a big splash in the Central West End. It was thought to be too different. And yet was approved. I mean, I could show how it wasn't that different, but I can also recall another project coming before the board years ago of a modern home the next block over from me that was not approved. And I'm not saying that it should have been approved, but the applicant and architect's argument was that, you know, the Central West End Historic District standards allow for modern design. And because of that, that project should have worked. So yeah, every historic district is different, but that does not solve the issue of what the requirements are for each particular district.
Well, may I jump in here really quick? I actually think the process is working out as intended. The CRO gets to make a decision. The applicant can appeal that decision, take it to us as a board. We review it, you know, as outlined in the ordinance, and we make a decision based on each case's individual merits, not necessarily compared to this or that or previous circumstances, but on a case-by-case basis. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we do, as a body, reserve the right to rule based on, you know, what was presented and our feelings about that.
We absolutely, as a body, have that right. Being the person that I am and have been all of my life, I have experienced a lack of favoritism by governing bodies. And so I hear what you're saying, but the closer that we can stay to the rules, and those rules for everyone, so that we aren't making specific exceptions for people, keeps a certain fairness in this. That is all I'm going to say.
Thank you very much, commissioners. If there is no further obvious discussion, let's hear a roll call vote. Would you start the roll, please?
Commissioner Coder,
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson,
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson,
No.
and Commissioner Vines.
Aye.
For the record, the chairman abstains.
That is 3 yeses, 1 no. And an abstention.
Okay. The appeal is upheld. The Preservation Board Director's denial is overturned. Commissioners, there's no further business on our agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Without objection, then, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much, commissioners.